In 2020, you'd be hard-pressed to throw it back to Chuck Liddell and Tito Ortiz or Randy Couture or insert any great heavy or light heavyweight from 2008 to 2012. This is one of those throwback fights. We've got Volkan Oezdemir taking on the toughest guy to have the nickname Denisa, Jiri Prochazka. This is an insane fight. Jiri Prochazka, for what it's worth, 3 losses on the record. One of them, really tough out, King Mo. All right, you can take it for what it's worth. He knocked him out not that much long after. Bojan Velichkovic is another one of those ones that's on there. Yeah, he's a welterweight. All right, so not the greatest there, but in terms of what he's done over in RIZIN, it's absolutely insane. He's their light heavyweight champion. He just continues to win and win and win. And for him, it's been no time. But Volkan Oezdemir, for what it's worth, he had that 3-fight losing streak where he lost at UFC 220 for the belt. He lost then again to a tough out in Anthony Smith in Moncton, New Brunswick, Canada. And then after that, he loses a split decision to Dominic Reyes, which, again, you're going to tell me I'm wrong in the comments, and I know you will. I thought Oezdemir won that fight against Reyes. So then he comes out and has an insane performance, gets a big win coming off of that loss. And then after that, it's a fight against Rakic that... Did he really win that fight? I know he did, and it shows that he won on his record. But, I mean, there aren't any easy fights at light heavyweight, and you can disagree with me there. Jiri Prochazka is probably the toughest fight you can get if you're Volkan Oezdemir.
Oh, 100%. But there's 2 versions of Oezdemir, and they're both very different from one another, because you have no-time Oezdemir, and then you just have Volkan. And it's not that either one's bad, it's they fight very differently, because when Volkan Oezdemir is at his best, it's that hands up, going forward, throwing really good combinations too. He does have really crisp boxing. He's not just a guy who's going to go out there and brawl like Jessica Andrade, for instance, who's coming up later in the card. She has great power, but her technique's not good because she's putting everything into every shot. Volkan Oezdemir throws a really good leg kick, can stay behind the jab, really sets up his power punches really well. And the Latifi fight was a perfect example of that. Because what he did was, he just kind of broke down Latifi. He knew that Latifi's dangerous in that first round, but the longer the fight goes, the less power he's going to have. So Oezdemir was very smart, threw those really nice calf kicks. One of the few light heavyweights, actually, who throws calf kicks. I know Daniel Cormier did before he moved up to heavyweight. John Jones throws them, but not really. And then Thiago Santos is really the only guy. So it's not that commonly used of a technique at that weight division, at least yet. And Oezdemir is one of the pioneers, if you will, of the calf kick at light heavyweight. I think that'll make a big difference in this fight because Jiri Prochazka, in RIZIN, we've seen him beat a lot of guys, and we've seen him finish pretty much everybody. But level of competition is something that you have to bring up. I would rather a fighter lose to Daniel Cormier by rear naked choke and at least put up a decent fight instead of knocking out CB Dalloway fairly easily.
That's it. Like with Prochazka last 5. Jake Kuhn, he's good. Brandon Halsey, he was supposed to be great in Bellator. King Mo, but that was a year ago. Yeah. Like, that's not prime King Mo. Fabio Maldonado, that's not prime Fabio. No. And then after that, the win where he absolutely decimated poor CB Dalloway. When I saw that fight was actually happening, I couldn't believe it, and the result was entirely predictable. And oh, by the way, Jiri Prochazka in that fight closed over a minus 900 favorite. Wow. And this is a telling stat, and it might come as a surprise for a lot of people. Shalash Magulov coming in from Fight Nights Global, former champion, underdog in his UFC debut against Halion Paiva. Then you have a really tough test, and in another debut, and again, might be a bit of a surprise, you have Roman Bogatov as the underdog taking on Leonardo Santos. Jiri Prochazka is the 3rd champion coming in, again from RIZIN. He's an underdog in this fight against Volkan Oezdemir. Does that surprise you?
Not really, if I'm being honest. And I hope Prochazka doesn't have what I'm just going to start calling the Chris Cyborg effect. When you beat a lot of people who just aren't at your level to begin with, and I'm not saying he's not an amazing mixed martial artist, because he is. It's really hard to really put where you are on that kind of ladder at the upper echelons when you're beating guys like the CB Dalloways, the Fabio Maldonados. They're not easy fights by any means, but you know that those guys weren't on his level to begin with. And I hope he doesn't come into this fight thinking, well, in my last 15 fights, it's not like I've had that much adversity to face. I just walk forward, go through anything that's thrown back at me, and then I'm just going to be able to destroy what's in front of me. Volkan Oezdemir doesn't play those games, though. If you just walk forward on him, hands down, don't really respect his power, he's going to put you to sleep. I think the Anthony Smith loss for Oezdemir is probably his worst loss out of those 3 because, again, with the Reyes fight, there was an argument he won that fight. I also believe he did. It was a close fight, though, so it's not like it was a robbery by any means. The Daniel Cormier fight, you lost to possibly the greatest fighter ever. And then the Smith fight where he did really well for those first couple of rounds and then got his nose broke again, which he did admit afterwards. He thought they should have taken more time off after the DC fight just because he took so much damage in that and ended up getting choked out. I don't think we're going to see that Oezdemir. I think we are going to see the who was his last fight? Whose name evades me all of a sudden?
Alexander Rakic.
Yeah, we're gonna see either the Rakic or the Latifi one. Who is going forward? The Rakic, again, that was Volkan fighting. That wasn't no time because he didn't have that same kind of sense of urgency. I'm just going to go for it, land my big shots. It was really good to begin with, and then it kind of became this weird clinch fight between the two, which was odd because it didn't really play to either guy's strength. I think we're going to see the best Volkan Oezdemir we've seen in a long time, though. And I think Prochazka, there's just so many question marks that it's hard for me to pick him to win this fight.
This is the trouble for me. Since Volkan Oezdemir left Florida, it hasn't really been the same Volkan Oezdemir. Sure. I know the Ilir Latifi was post-Florida, but still, it was a weird fight. And what we've seen from Ilir Latifi, yeah, he had a good fight against Derek Lewis. You can make an argument that he won that fight, but still, it doesn't really tell me all that much. I mean, Ilir Latifi has to be one of the streakiest fighters in MMA, up there with Vince St. Preux. We're just talking former common opponents at this point. But for Volkan Oezdemir, yeah, the fight against Rakic, not all that great. Rakic, a good up-and-coming prospect. Insert Jiri Prochazka. And the other thing about Prochazka too, and we talked about this on this card with Raulian Paiva, you have a lot of success outside of the UFC. You come in, maybe some fights don't go your way. You're taking on tough competition. Loses split to Kai Kara-France, and then after that, I mean, his eyebrow blew up against Rogerio Bontorin. Jiri Prochazka's taken on good competition outside of the UFC.
It's been okay, though.
King Mo, Over the Hill, Fabio Maldonado, CB Dollaway, Jake Kuhn, Brandon Halsey, all right, whatever, mixed bag. They're still big names. They're big confidence boosters. You're coming in here with a head of steam. You're an underdog. I think this is a really good opportunity for Jiri Prochazka to shock the world, and I think he's going to get the win here.
So I agree with the confidence booster, but I think it's going to work against him. Against CB Dollaway, you're not at any risk of getting knocked out yourself. Yes, Fabio Maldonado technically is an amazing boxer. There's just no power behind any of those shots. You can walk forward on those guys, and that really plays into his style. Jiri Prochazka is not a guy who's going to land a jab and then take a few steps back, work his movement, and really set up his combinations. He does that for the first, I'd say, 2 minutes of every fight. He kind of has that downloading time, if you will, like a Floyd Mayweather, where I'm just going to take my time, figure out what you're doing, and then I can start to find weaknesses. Of course, he's not nearly as high level as Floyd Mayweather, just a good example. I saw your face. So I think that's going to work against him. I think he is going to go forward on Oezdemir. I think he's going to eat a lot of shots that he hasn't been used to taking. He's never fought a guy at Oezdemir's level in his prime. And maybe Oezdemir is past his prime, if you will, because he has gotten his title shot already. But Volkan Oezdemir hits as hard as anybody in that division still. Not a big kicker. He does throw the light kick. Throws an okay body kick, but it's not like you're fighting Thiago Santos. Interestingly enough, a fight that was offered to Prochazka. And this is where I think Prochazka is like underrated smart, because this is something you see a lot of boxers do and not a lot of MMA fighters do it. They offered him Santos coming off double knee surgeries, but still. And he was like, I'd rather fight a guy a little bit further back as my debut, just because there's no sense fighting the top 3 guy, losing, and then have to kind of restart. Fight a Volkan Oezdemir, who does have a big name. He's main event at multiple fight nights. He's co-main evented a pay-per-view against, a fairly big draw in DC, who's kind of been there and done that. So a win over Oezdemir does wonders for Prochazka's career. And going into this video, I thought I would pick Prochazka to win. I'm thinking Volkan Oezdemir is going to be able to get it done.
That's the thing. I mean, it's one of those fights where it's almost a coin flip, and you can make an argument for either fighter. Again, Volkan Oezdemir, tougher strength of schedule. He's fought better fighters in their primes, but it's been a mixed bag. You really don't know what you're going to get at this point, especially training overseas, not in Florida, camped at Hard Knocks or Sanford. And for Prochazka, again, maybe not the biggest gym in the world, but he's found a ton of success, especially lately. If you look over at the odds, Oezdemir minus 160 favorite, Prochazka coming in a plus 130 underdog. If you look over on Tapology, people are somewhat split out of 951 votes, and this fight was announced quite a while ago, so there are a fair amount of people voting on this. 56% going with Oezdemir to get the win, 62% picking him to get the knockout. Do you see it that way?
I don't know if he gets the knockout. I have a question for you. If Oezdemir fought the last 5 guys Prochazka's fought, would the fights go any differently?
Probably not.
If Prochazka fought the last 5 guys Oezdemir's fought, would any of those fights go differently? Other than the Anthony Smith one?
I think the Rakic fight would have gone differently.
I think Rakic probably beats him because he throws a lot of head kicks. But I know what I'm going to get from Volkan Oezdemir. He's going to throw big, heavy power shots. He has fairly good cardio for the light heavyweight division. And there's just a somewhat level of consistency. I know in his record he's won some and lost some, but you just know what you're going to get skill set-wise. With Prochazka, there's too many question marks, so I have to pick Oezdemir.
I love it when we disagree, Matt. And now you're getting your chance to win back the trophy. You're a lot behind, but we're going to have to see what happens. A great weekend. I mean, we went 8-2 last weekend. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for the card. UFC 251, extended look at our 3 title fights at the top. Matt, as we always say with Fight Night Picks, let's get into it.